Hi, my name is Callie Fell, and I'm the Executive Director at the Center for Bioethics and Culture. Today, I have the honor and the privilege of sitting down with one woman who wants to tell her story of being a surrogate mother here in the United States. Erika reached out to us at the Center for Bioethics and Culture when she was still pregnant with the child she was carrying as part of a surrogacy contract. And she has since delivered that baby and is here to tell her story. Erika, thank you so much for sitting down with us and for agreeing to share your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate that you responded, when I reached out. And I just think it's very important for me to share, my journey.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us, just let's start from the beginning. Tell me a little bit about you, about your family, and what initially led you to pursue becoming a surrogate mother.
Okay. I am currently 35 years old. I am a mom of two. I'm a single mom, but I enjoy it. Surrogacy, I I kid you not, this is something I've always wanted to do. I didn't even want to have my own kids. I wanted to adopt. There are so many kids out there that are unwanted, and I just have a heart for service. I have a heart for the individuals who can't. I have a heart for the underdog. And it just touched my heart that there are people who truly want children that are unable to do that for themselves. And I didn't mind being pregnant. In fact, I thought I enjoyed being pregnant. So I was like, yeah, let me do this. I tried a couple times, but I wasn't able to get through the process because back then, I had government assistance and can't have that when you're a surrogate. So I was finally in a financial situation where I was able to, pursue and continue forward with the process.
I see. So you have children of your own now, and you decided to become a surrogate mother, but were denied because of being on assistance, financial assistance. But then once you were in a position, you were able to move forward with with doing a surrogate contract, correct? Is that
Correct.
okay? Okay. And how did you like? You say you always wanted to do it, but how did you find out about surrogate? Did you see it on TV? Did you have a family member? Do you
I
even
feel
have a memory of how?
I feel like there was something on TV.
Okay.
I'm certain there was a movie or something on TV that sparked my interest.
Yeah, yeah. And it just seems like when you've shared your story with me, you just have this altruistic component about it, like wanting to help other families, wanting to help, um, and be a helper is kind of how I would describe your personality.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me to be able to help someone who can't. Like, I've been in situations before where I felt like my back was against a wall and I had no one. And it only took one person to show me compassion or, seek me out and see me. And
Hmm.
I think I just took that on. And
Hmm.
that's who I am.
Do you think, though, that the industry, now looking back, and we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but kind of exploits that altruistic heart or gives an image of something that it's not? Like a lot of people when I talk to, and I say that I'm against like third party conception, they're like, well, what about the couple that's always wanted to be parents and they would be outstanding parents? And they give me this like, very ideal scenario. And I feel like the fertility industry, at least from my angle, really exploits that angle. Do you feel that way, or what's your thoughts on that being gone through it?
I think that's a great question, an excellent question. Initially, I was all for it, because you get the beauty of the industry and what you're going to go through and how you're going to help someone. But having gone through it, I definitely think the industry itself exploits that. People who want to help, people who I just want to bless someone, I just want to be able to bring something into life that these people aren't able to. I definitely think that the industry exploits it. And I was so pro surrogacy in the beginning. And now I would tell everyone to just run. Don't do it.
Mm,
Um, no.
yeah. So let's back up then. You went through an agency. You found an agency, local agency in your area, or how did you kind of go about once you were off of government assistance and were given the green light to become a surrogate mother? Uh, Talk us through the steps that you went through and the matching process and all of that.
Okay. I hit Google and I found surrogacy agencies in my area. Of course, I looked at the reviews and I started reaching out to several agencies. And I started the process, giving them all of my information, um, paperwork, lots and lots of paperwork. Um, it was a really, really long process, and the process took nearly a year
Okay.
to get through. The entire process before we even were going to transfer the embryo. I found one that I liked. The woman, she was great, and we
You
got
found a
into.
clinic you liked? Is that what you're referring? Okay.
I found an agency,
An agency. Okay.
that I liked, and we went ahead and started the matching process. I had already started looking for. Had already started researching what information they would need. So I had already had all the information. I'm proactive. And if I know what they're going to be looking for, I want to give them as quickly as possible because I want to start the process. So we did that and I got matched with a couple. So apparently for them, you send pictures, you send all of your information. They have a binder. People go through the binder and if they like you, they like what you look like, they like what you look like on paper. Hey, let's go with her. They
Hmm.
present me to them, and then present them to me.
Okay. And when they present them to you, what kind of information do you get?
I get information regarding why they want to do this, what's their goal, if they want to terminate, things of that nature.
Okay.
So I had a family and we matched. We talked via Zoom, kind of like we're doing now. And I ended up not going with that first family
Okay.
um, because their views on termination was different than mine.
Okay.
And so I met another family, matched with them, and the story was very compelling as people can pull on my heartstrings, and that's exactly, how I got matched with this family. The story was beautiful, and I chose this family. I got through the
What
match.
about their story was compelling, if you can say?
So I will say that without giving too much information, the trying to give you the story without giving you too much information. The intended parents were not the biological parents of the child that I was going to be carrying.
And you knew that ahead of time?
I knew that ahead of time. I thought it was beautiful because her brother, the intended mom's brother, had passed. He had frozen his sperm. He had wanted a child, and the family agreed that they would do that. And I just thought it was so beautiful initially going in, like, oh, he's no longer around and he wants a child and the family's going to step up and do that. I think that's absolutely, beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, so I chose the family and they
Yeah.
were super, super nice. I met with them via Zoom several times. And I really appreciated what I heard.
Hmm.
And they seemed so soft and so sweet. And, they had already had kids of their own, but of course, this wouldn't be their kid.
This would be their niece or nephew.
Niece or nephew.
Right. Okay. So
Yes.
I'm just going to dissect this for people listening one more time. So the intended parents were a male and a female, right? So a heterosexual couple who were being, and the woman, the intended mother, was going to be implanted with an embryo created from her deceased brother's sperm. And where was the egg coming from?
So
Were
the
you
egg was coming from an egg donor.
okay? So we have an egg
Yes.
donor,
Uh-huh.
and we have a deceased brother's sperm, and then an intended mother or aunt, who would be the mother after the child, and a surrogate mother, you. So we've got like four people involved already, and yeah. Okay. So just so that everyone kind of gets that clear, because it can be a lot. So four people. Did they intend, do you know, and you may not know this, but did they intend to have their names on the birth certificate, or do you know any, like, who?
Yes. Per the contract, they did intend on having their names as the parents.
Okay. 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 All right. So that's a little bit about them. And then what were your expectations going into it? What are some things? Let's like talk a little bit more into now about consent and the contract. So you've matched with the family, you feel good about going forward, and I've read many contracts in this space. They are very long and they can be very detailed. You talked briefly already about termination clauses. And you guys didn't align on that. So it's with the first family, you didn't align, so didn't go forward. What are some of the things in your contract that were stipulated that maybe you expected or didn't expect as you moved through the process?
Okay. So the contract was very, very extensive, and I read it. I think it was like 65 pages.
Hmm.
I read it and I read it because I'm not going to sign anything until I understand thoroughly. Some of the stipulations were they had a termination clause in there. I said that I wouldn't terminate for any reason. That's just who I am. That's my faith. That's what I believe. Travel, of course, no smoking or drinking or any illicit drugs, which is not something I do anyway. You can't get move forward if you do those things. Communication, communication after birth, just things of that nature. It was a lot. It was a
Hmm.
lot in that contract, and I was reading it, and it talked about like in the event that I was to, go brain dead or something, they would, leave me on a ventilator and, continue my life until baby is born, things of that nature, things that you never would expect to happen. I was restricted to my state, to my area, not moving.
But not even traveling, right? Like you mentioned travel for a second there, but um, what did your contract specifically say about travel?
So my contract said I was restricted to my state. I couldn't travel. I couldn't travel after. Initially, it was 18 weeks. I couldn't travel over 30 minutes.
Mm.
Um,
30 minutes.
yeah, I couldn't
30
travel,
minutes.
couldn't travel outside the state or anything after 18 weeks. And then couldn't travel out of the state. But I had them extended out because my mom was sick. And I'm like, if something happens to my mom, I'm going to need to get to her. If she, somehow passes, I'm going to need to go. But
Mhm.
even that wasn't a complete green light. They were like, oh, well, extend it out into 22 weeks. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, that's strange, you
Yeah.
know, but
And you and your children are residing in one state, and your family, including your mother, is in a different state.
correct,
Okay.
correct. Where I was, I had no family, just
Hmm.
me and my children. Um, so yeah, now as you're reading the contract, you're not thinking any of those things could happen in real life. So yeah, let
Hmm.
me sign it. Let me sign it in front of the notary. Cool.
Yeah. Where do you feel, in your own opinion, do you feel that you were given full and clear information about the medical, legal, emotional, all of the aspects of surrogacy before agreeing and signing?
No, no one sat down with me and truly explained it to me. I did have an attorney that I was working with, and we would talk over the phone and try to go through. I read through it, and if I had any questions, I'd let her know. And if it was something that I didn't agree with, she'd go back and they'd go back and forth with the attorneys until we got to a space where we can compromise.
Hmm.
Um,
The
I don't.
legal, sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
No, I don't think that I don't think people truly get the full information and the detail and the guts of how difficult it can be to be a surrogate
Hmm.
and what this contract truly means.
Hmm.
So,
You say you were offered legal counsel via attorney. Was that legal counsel independent of the agency or intended parents?
yes,
So you hired and found this legal counsel on your own and paid
yes,
for.
yes. Well, the agency paid for it.
The agency paid for it.
Yes.
And she never worked for the agency or the intended parents.
No.
Okay. Okay. So often I hear that the legal counsel also worked for at some time the agency or still does or is provided by the agency or intended parents. It's already a conflict of interest that it's paid for by someone else, but good to hear that it wasn't someone that works for the agency or offered legal counsel for them as well. Okay. Is there anything else before we move on that you'd like to say about the recruitment process or the informed consent process or the contract before we move on?
The contract. The
Okay, let's talk
contract
more about that.
the contract will continue to come up
Okay.
as it was a huge problem during this pregnancy. I think overall, getting the medical, waiting for the egg donor, waiting for all those things made the process longer than it could have been or should have been. But the recurring theme here will be the contract. So I don't know if we want to talk about it right now
Yeah,
or
let's
if
do. We can. Yeah, I mean, while it's relevant, the one thing I did want to ask before you go on is obviously super altruistic motivations, which I hear a lot when I talk to surrogate mothers about wanting to help other families and help people, especially in this case where you seem like you're also not just helping a mother and a father, but you're helping an extended family, so to speak, because you're honoring someone's legacy. I have my own thoughts about um, sperm and egg donation from people who have passed. But we won't get into that here. But it is a conversation I think that needs to be had. But my question is, was there obviously you're a commercial gestational surrogate mother, so there was a financial component. Do you want to speak at all about that at all? Was it exactly what you expected, or any comments on that?
Yeah, sure, I can speak on that.
Okay.
But first, let's go back to my
Okay.
motive.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
I
Cool.
mean, of course, I want to help, but
Right.
years ago, I was working and I had a friend who, her and her husband had been trying for years to have a child. And she was so heartbroken and so distraught. And I was like, I had recently had my youngest daughter. So this was nearly 11 years ago.
Okay.
And she was so sad and it broke my heart because she really, really wanted a child and she couldn't. So what I did was I went home one night and I written up a proposal to be her surrogate for free because
Okay.
I just wanted to help her and it broke my heart that somebody wanted something so bad and they couldn't have it.
Yeah.
So that was my motive here. That was my green light. And so for this, there was a financial component. It was not at all what I expected. Of course, you're going to get your base and you're going to get what Google tells you what you can make. But in my case, in this specific case, I am probably one of the lowest paid
Oh, okay.
surrogates, period. But I didn't care because of the story and because this is something I truly wanted to do. I was like, okay, that's fine.
Hmm.
You know, I'll take the lowest of the low
Hmm.
to make this happen. This is something I really wanted to do. But as we move forward, the financial aspect became a problem and it didn't match up. It didn't match up and it made it not worth it.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the contract and how the comments that you wanted to make about how it's going to keep rising up through. So go ahead.
Okay. So first things first, I have to communicate with the family, which is fine, which is great. We talked about what kind of communication we wanted throughout the pregnancy. And, I was okay with whatever kind of communication they were okay with, as long as it didn't, take over my life and it wasn't badgering. I'm still free to be a human, to work, to take care of my kids, to go to school, all those things that I was doing. So I was okay with the communication, and per the agreement, we have to communicate. When we communicate with one another, I think it's on a weekly basis, and we have 24 hours to respond. Now, while initially you're thinking, oh, that's fine, that's not a problem, real life happens.
Mm,
And it became a problem.
mm.
And it became a problem that the intended mom kept bringing up, so much so that I kept getting emails from the lawyer and I kept getting calls from the agency because I'm working or this is happening and I can't get to them when I need to, but it's not intentional. Communication, um, travel, which is a really, really big, hard one for me. I don't know if we want to go ahead and get into that right now.
Sure, let's go ahead. And I just want to highlight too that what people don't know, and often surrogate mothers don't realize this too, and maybe you did, but once you sign the contract with the help of your own legal counsel, they are no longer your legal counsel, right? Like, so you're on your own. So when you talked about just for a minute there about communication and having lawyers reach out to you, it was to you, and you have nobody in your corner anymore unless you provide and hire them yourself.
Absolutely. And
Right.
I didn't know that initially. I thought that she was going to continue to work with me. So when I started to have issues, I reached out to her and that's when she let me know, I'm no longer representing you. I'm no longer your counsel. Once we signed the
Wow.
contract, our dealings were done. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't foresee, any issues." Um, but in my case, just start with the pregnancy. The pregnancy has been hard from the very beginning. The very beginning, once I found out I was pregnant, I want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Because first, there's so much medication and there's so many shots that you have to take to get your body ready. I had my tubes tied with my last daughter. So, my body is not getting ready for a child or anything. So I'm having to take, these shots and take all these pills to get my body ready. And I started to immediately have side effects.
Mm.
So my hair's falling out. I'm exhausted. I'm vomiting all the time. I'm just like, okay, I just had to keep reminding myself that this is for a good cause. This is for a good cause. It's going to be beautiful. And as I said, I'm a single mom. I talked with my children. My children had input on, my decision to do this. So they had been involved the whole time. In fact, my 12-year-old was the one that was giving me the injections.
Oh my.
Right. So we're doing all the injections, all the medication. I'm getting sick, and I get pregnant. And all the while I'm doing the injections and everything, I'm getting contacted by mom, intended mom, and we're starting off with a great
And
communication and
by you getting pregnant, you mean the embryo transfer took place.
embryo
Okay.
transfer.
I
Yes,
don't want to
we're
confuse folks because that has happened before too.
oh no.
So,
Yes,
yes,
no.
you are doing the medication, you had the embryo transfer, and it was successful.
It was successful. Yes.
Okay.
And prior to, mom, she's worried. She's worried. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. I'm very hopeful. And I'm just like, I just don't believe that I'm going to get this far in the process, in the whole process of surrogacy anyway, and for it not to work. I just don't believe that that's going to happen. And so she was just worried. I'm just like, just don't worry, be, optimistic because that's where I am. But it has started to stress me out
Hmm.
already
Mhm.
before, the completion of the transfer. So we get the transfer and it's positive. I wanted to wait until I had went ahead and taken a pregnancy test prior to getting, the positive results from the fertility clinic. And I was just like, okay, do I tell her? Do I wait? Do I wait? And I'm just like, I'm going to wait as long as I can. But I was so excited. So I sent her the pregnancy test. Um, and so she was excited. I think she backed off a little bit. Um, but then I was sick immediately. I was an assistant director at a childcare facility. I have big responsibilities to these children's lives, over 200 children, and I'm sick. I immediately, I lost 14 pounds.
Wow.
I lost 14 pounds in the beginning, and I know you normally lose weight, but not that much. I was diagnosed with hyperemesis. It's when you have severe nausea, vomiting. Half the time I couldn't get out of the bed. I was at the emergency room weekly getting fluids. and that's the only way I could continue to go.
And you have your own children to take care of as well.
I have my own children to take care of. I am in school for my master's,
And you're a director of
working.
childcare. Wow.
Yes.
And didn't have this with your own biological pregnancies. No
No,
complications. Okay.
nothing. With my first daughter, perfect pregnancy, no sickness, no anything. She came out 40, 40 weeks and 2 days. With my second one, I was a little sick. She had intrauterine growth restriction. They had to take her a little bit early. She was perfectly healthy, fine, all of that. But you have to have at least two children. You have to have at least one full-term pregnancy,
Okay.
birth. So yeah, I didn't have any of that with my first one. I ended up, my boss at job was like, you're really, really sick, and they're trying to work with me, but then it got to a point where they started to doubt my abilities, and I had to go on a leave
Leave from work.
from work. Yes. So, I go on a leave, and I can't share all of these things with the intended mom. I share some of the things, but she's so worried, so worried. So I'm just like, okay, let me just deal with what I can. So the next thing that happens is
Is
I'm
this a
getting,
paid leave? Can I ask?
it was not a paid leave.
Not a paid leave.
It
Okay.
was not a paid leave.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm getting sicker and sicker. And I chalk it up to, new job, all these stressors, new pregnancies. But what was happening was, if I hadn't taken this leave, I wouldn't have found out what was happening next. Um, I went to the doctor. I kept going to the OB appointments, and they're like, "Oh, you're fine." I'm like, "No, like I'm really, really sick. It doesn't make sense." And they're like, "Oh, it's just first trimester blues." And I'm like, "No, I think it's something else. Like, it doesn't make sense." So I'm telling them, and they're rebutting what I'm saying. So finally, I'm at home for those couple weeks, not working, and I'm getting sicker and sicker. And I'm like, I can't breathe. My head is hurting. One day, my daughter, she had a performance at school, and she asked me to come. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to come, like,
Mm.
only because physically I'm so sick. So I'm like, are you going to be upset if I don't come? She's like, yeah, kind of. Of course I'm going to get up. Of course I'm going to get up and force
Okay.
myself to go. We were out for about 3 hours. And we came back into the house, and immediately I had a headache and I couldn't breathe. I had to stay in the back of my apartment because there was a smell up front that I couldn't take. Every time I came in the house, I had to hold my breath or I was going to vomit.
Oh my.
So I finally stopped going to the OB and just went to my regular primary. And I told her what was going on. And I said, maybe I think it's mold. And she was like, you're worried about mold. I think it might be CO2 poisoning. And I'm like, okay. So she goes and does labs, and that's exactly what it is. It was CO2 poisoning and mold.
Wow.
So
Both. Both.
both,
Yeah.
yes.
And can we stop for just a second? Because I want to talk a little bit about, again, the contract and what the intended parents can know or not know. And a lot of times, surrogate mothers give up their right to privacy when it comes to doctor's visits. When you went to obviously to the OB, she or he probably shared. What you were providing with the intended parents. What about, or do you know about when you went to your primary care, was there an obligation to share that information with the intended parents, or do you know?
So with my primary care, there was not an
Okay.
obligation. And even with the OB, she didn't have physical access to my records. I would send them.
Okay.
Yeah. I would send, what I needed to send.
Okay.
Um,
So there could be parts of of your conversation that could be private
right.
without you. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt. These are
no, it's
details
okay.
that kind of come up in my brain that I see and I want to just um ask. But
It's
anyway.
okay.
Okay, so mold and carbon monoxide.
Yes.
Big deal. Big deal.
Big deal. So she immediately wrote a note to my apartment. It's like, they have to get out of here now. She's pregnant and she can't be here. So then I take my kids to the doctor, and same thing with them. Their levels are
Oh,
up. And so first thing I do, and this is when I found out that the attorney that I was working with was no longer working with me.
okay.
So I tell her, I think I was about 12 weeks. And I let her know, I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. I don't know what I should do. How should I tell the parents, or should I tell you and you work with the attorneys? Because I can't stay here. I don't have any family here. I need to go back, to my home state where, number one, if something happens to me, my kids are taken care of. Number two, I can get the help, the care that I need, and we'll have somewhere safe to sleep.
Hmm.
I didn't have any family where I was.
Right.
So,
And you're
so
essentially homeless and on leave.
right,
So making no income and can't live in your apartment is unsafe
right.
or house is unsafe.
Yeah. So luckily, I had already received my first payment. So that money went to a week in a hotel. So
Okay.
they got
First
expensive.
payment from your surrogacy agreement.
Correct. Um, so that got expensive really fast. And, I'm trying to work out things like, what am I going to do? So I ended up calling the intended mom. And I had a conversation. I was like, I just want to let you know what's happening with me, only because what happens to me physically directly affects this child that I'm carrying, that's yours. So
Right.
I'm having a conversation with her, and she's like, oh no. And she's like, well, what are your apartments going to do? Like, are they going to put you in a hotel or whatever? And I was just like, I don't know. I'm just figuring it out. I just want to let you know what's happening to me physically so you're not worried. So apparently she contacted her attorney, and immediately they got to me and was like, we're not giving you any money to relocate. We're not, I mean, to, move. We're not giving you money for a hotel or anything. Well, that's not what I asked for. I just wanted to let you know because I'm holding your child.
Right.
And and I think she thought I wanted more money or something. I didn't. um, and then that's where the travel restrictions came in,
Mm.
because I'm like, I don't have any family here. I think best case scenario, I need to go home where my family is. And I got a message back and was like, no, you're not going to be able to move because it's going to make it harder for us.
Right.
And we're going to have to, because we're not the biological parents, we're going to have to go through the adoption process to adopt our child. And I was like, so I kept trying to make compromises. I'm like, okay, so how about I go and I drive back and forth for my appointments, or I go for a little while until I can figure something else out.
Because you were
After,
still fairly early, right? Like 12-ish weeks, first,
yes.
second trimester, fairly
Mm-hmm.
early. Yeah.
That
Okay.
was very, very early. So I'm trying to, figure out a solution that benefits everyone, because I want to ensure that I'm meeting the grounds, the contract. I'm not breaching the contract in any way, but also I have to realize that this is not something you can account for.
Right. You can't put
That's
that in a contract that if you're suddenly have to leave your house because of mold and carbon monoxide, these are things that you just can't predict. And that's what regulators of the surrogacy industry would say is, oh, well, there are contracts in place to protect all the parties. I call bull because you can't make a contract already at 60, 70 pages detailed enough to truly protect all of the parties, especially the voice that's never in these conversations, which is the voice of the unborn, the voice of the child. And you did well to consider that whatever happens to you, not only are you a person who is, worthy of your own dignity and taking care of your own family, but you are housing and taking care of this child, and you have an obligation there as well. But yeah, and I just want to hit on that because you can't contract away the risks
You can't.
or all of the scenarios. So anyway, I digress. Go go. I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Please interrupt if you have any questions or need clarity on something. But when I say I did everything humanly possible to make sure that I was healthy and I was doing everything I could for a healthy child, because I understand that's what you want, that's what you need. But at the risk of my own life and my children, we don't have anyone. So while I was applying for other apartments, waiting for that, that's when we were in the hotel and everything. And I was like, at this point, it's going to take a while to hear something back. And I just don't have the funds for that, So I ended up, reaching out, trying to figure out what I can do. But ultimately, I ended up going home.
Hmm.
I ended up going home and I ended up driving back and forth for my appointments.
Hmm.
And this is where it gets funny because they were paying for my insurance in the state that I was in.
Your health insurance, yeah.
Yes. So all my doctor's appointments and everything, of course, I get the statements. So when I went back home, either in between the visits that I had where I was driving back and forth 6 hours to get to my OB appointments, if I needed to see another doctor, that was coming out of my pocket.
Right. Or your insurance, your personal insurance. So because you had
Yes,
two insurance, right? Your own personal through your employer, through private, and then the insurance that the intended parents purchased for you as part of the contract.
correct, correct. But I couldn't use my work insurance
Because you were on leave.
because I was on leave and then I was moving. But not only that, but because it was an OB, they all lumped into, that kind of appointment. So, like I said, it was coming out of my pocket.
I see. So you didn't
Um,
bill insurance because you're like, okay, I mean, technically it would be a little bit of like it would be an issue because the baby's not yours, so it's not technically your pregnant, right? Yeah, it gets really, really muddy.
yes,
Yeah,
really muddy, a lot of red tape. So I had to do what the best thing I could do. And the pregnancy was hard from start to finish. I didn't enjoy it, any of it.
well, and complicated by the stress of your housing. And then what was your communication like after? Because it sounds like they automatically, and I don't know the intended parents, but it sounds like they kind of went on the defensive when you had this situation. Did it stay that way? Did things clear up? Were they, I mean, you obviously, from what I understand, didn't tell them that you were making these trips back and forth. Did you kind of just keep communication at a minimum? Like, tell us how the relationship um, continued during this.
So the relationship definitely changed. It changed because when I was telling my very human story to what I thought was a human, she was very callous and didn't care because as long as I didn't do anything to make it more difficult for them, she was fine. So because she was callous and I was like, I have children, my children are sick, we're in and out of the hospital, like this is not working. Because I felt like she was callous and robotic, I asked her, I said, I don't want any direct communication with you from here on out. I want to go through the agency. So communication from then on went through emails. And it was between myself, the agency, and her. And then towards the end, her attorney got involved.
I see.
Um, but that's how communication went. And initially, we were trying to build rapport and build a relationship. So um, I just felt like after that, there was nothing to talk about unless it was about one of my appointments. And since we had to talk on a weekly basis, and she made sure if I did not, I'd hear about it. And since we had to talk on a weekly basis, what I did was I was just like, here's my weekly check-in or here's my weekly correspondence.
Sure.
I'm fine, baby's fine, blah, blah. That was it. And she wanted to ask more questions, but I just didn't have anything to say. Not to mention that I just want to say this really quickly who I am. When I first started this journey, it was so beautiful. I had gotten on Canva and I created um, a digital surrogacy journal, interactive for both them and myself, where I enter in all my information, how I'm feeling, how I felt about this, how this process is going. She put in her information. At the end, I was going to put it in a binder with all the pictures, ultrasounds, all those things, and gifts to give at the birth. I had done that. But by this time, I think we had figured out the sex, the gender, and I had sent one of those big, gigantic gender reveal balloons to their house. And she recorded her response and sent it to me. And this was prior to the carbon monoxide and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I intended for it to be such a beautiful experience for everyone involved. But after that, things quickly went downhill.
Mm.
And it's like we started to have complications or, issues. And we got around to the 20-week mark where they do what do you call it? The anatomy scan.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everything was great, no issues with baby. So I let her know that she wanted documents of that. So I sent it over. And then a couple weeks after that, that's when things started to, get ugly. I wasn't gaining any weight, but I was doing everything that I could. I try to keep her in the loop, but without telling her how sick I really was, because I didn't want her to worry or give me a hard time. So I just dealt with it on top of having my kids and all this stuff and trying to enroll them in school and just try to figure out what our lives look like.
Mm-hmm.
But the contract remained dangling over my head.
Right.
There got to a point where I ended up having to send like a 3-page email, a three page that I typed in Word and sent it over to the family and the lawyers because it was a lot. It was a lot. So that's why I'm saying the contract has continued to
Mm-hmm.
be an issue. Then I want to say around 30, between 26 and 30 weeks, I had to start seeing high risk because she was small.
The
She
baby
had
was
started,
small that you
baby
were.
was small. She
Mm-hmm.
was she was starting to measure behind, and initially she was in the 7th percentile, and they were worried. So of course I had to share that with mom, and she's like, "Is there some? Are you eating? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? What are you doing?" And I felt like she was trying to blame it on me. Like I don't have control, and I had to you have to understand these are not my genetics. These aren't my genetics at all, and I'm doing everything humanly possible to ensure that you have a healthy baby.
Right.
Um,
What did you include in the 3-page letter? What was that about? Was that just saying like, I'm a little confused as to, was that just an update, a status update, or what was?
it was I'm tired. I need to let you know what's going on. Um, I had a lot going on with my health, my children. Um, she didn't understand why I didn't want to communicate directly with her. So initially, I told her she could be in the room when I gave birth because this is our experience. But after everything that happened, I reneged and I took it away. I was like, I don't feel comfortable with you being there. And she couldn't understand. And I think she got a little upset. She said that I was, what did she say? Not showing out. She said I was acting out or something or being upset that she wouldn't let me move.
Mm.
Because yeah, she was like, she's upset. I'm not letting her move. So she won't allow me into the room. But it's because you were callous and inhuman and insensitive to real life.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
the whole time, did she think that you just found another apartment and you just kind of never talked about it again? Yeah. Okay.
yes, yes. Because I ended up having to give them another address for files and paperwork and all those things. Um, so I included that in there, and I was like, I'm doing everything I can. I'm following the contract, yet you guys keep her. I felt harassed. I felt bullied because they kept dangling this in my face. You're not doing this. You're not communicating with me. I'm like, we're not friends. I'm doing a job, and that's how you want it. So I'm just letting them know that I'm a human. I have real life. I have feelings. You did X, Y, and Z, and so this is where we are.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's what I incorporated into that.
Okay.
I got a response that was, kind of okay, and I was like, okay. I felt like she understood, or at least portrayed that she understood where I was coming from,
Mm-hmm.
and I
But it
was
just
trying
sounds
to
like, sorry, it just sounds like it became something that you really wanted to be this celebration of a new life and a new relationship turned into strictly transactional.
strictly transactional, and I don't know how to operate in that manner.
Mm.
I don't know how to operate in that manner, and it was hurtful.
Mm.
So yeah.
So you had the anatomy scan. You sent her that everything was going well, except for now you have your high risk pregnancy because the baby is um was she diagnosed with IUGR like your other pregnancy? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she
So
was. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say, so if you want to take us from there, if there's not much more to say about that, then we can move on to like the birth, but you were high risk, so you started to see a high risk doctor, which probably meant more visits to the doctor, more drives back to the state where the contract was. And can I ask really quick, actually, we should have asked this in the beginning. The intended parents, were they also in the same state as you or a different state?
They're in a different state.
Okay. Do you know why they chose the state that you live in or lived in?
Something about, because I know that's where the agency was, but there was something about that's where the embryo was made or created.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the state we had to do everything in.
I see. I got you. Okay. 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 So you're high risk now. You're going back and forth more frequently to the state where the contract was negotiated and signed. And is there anything else to know as you're ending the end of your pregnancy? I think we've spoke offline about how it was really important to you to have as natural of a birth as possible to avoid an unnecessary induction and those types of things. So if we were ready, we can kind of talk towards the end of your pregnancy and what that looks like. But I'll let you take it kind of from there.
Okay, yeah. So after finding out that she was growth restricted, of course, I had to share with parents. And by this time, the communication had gotten ugly. She had started demanding to talk to the doctors, even though I was providing her with all the documentation. Everything that the doctors told me, I shared almost immediately after my appointment. And it's a lot of stress on me. I'm giving her documentation that she needs. And then I get another email from the lawyer, you're not fulfilling this portion of your contract. She has the right to talk to the doctor. And every time I get hit with something that I'm not doing in the contract, I go back and read it. I go back and read it and see, like, what am I missing? Like, it's scary because you're bullying me and you're harassing me, and I just want to be a human and get through this. So she's demanding to talk to the doctor. So I'm telling the doctors, I'm like, this is what we're presented with. Do you want to talk to her? Some of the doctors were like, you're the patient. And I appreciated that. You're the patient, but you have this contract as well. And then I told him, if you're talking to her, don't talk about me. You talk about the baby because my health is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, um, the lawyer was like, she can talk to the doctors, or she can make you go to another doctor's office. And I'm just like, I'm doing everything that you guys are asking. So she ended up talking to two other doctors, and the second time she talked to the doctor, she asked, "Is because Erica and her kids were exposed to carbon monoxide? Is that the reason my baby is small?" Not only that, she was asking if there was a way that we can induce, and she was saying, "I live far away, and I just want to make sure that I make it on time." Per the contract, she's not supposed to ask me to induce
For no
unless something
medical
is wrong,
reason,
for
right? Like
no
if there's a
medical
med
reason.
right. This was she was wanting an induction because she wanted to make it,
Make it
she
on time.
wanted to
And
control.
yes, this was prior to finding out that she was growth restricted, that she was asking
Oh,
for an
okay.
induction. And I told her, I was like, I understand you want to make it on time in time. If that's the case, why don't you just come a week or two early? Get yourself established, find a room or something, and then to ensure that you make it on time instead of asking me to induce. And I told her, I was like, I don't want to be induced as an African American woman. I don't want to have a C-section, all of those things. I was like, I'm scared. I had to induce with my youngest. It went fine, but I still don't want to induce if I don't have to.
Sure.
Um, so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, that she was trying to find a way to blame me for the baby being small. Make it, are you eating? I'm doing everything humanly possible. Again. Um, so we're getting towards the end of the pregnancy, and I'm driving back and forth. and drives are getting harder.
Mm. I can imagine.
They're getting really hard, and that's when the doctor up there suggested, are you able to see someone down there high risk? And I was like, I don't know how that's going to work, but I ended up finding someone. But like I said, I had gone to 3 appointments. I had gone to 3 high risk appointments. I was already at 8 grand.
Because you just paid out of pocket to avoid the issues with insurance.
Yes.
Hmm.
So we're getting to the end of the pregnancy, and everything is fine. I get diagnosed with gestational diabetes.
Hmm.
I've never had that before or anything. And then there was a teeter-totter of misinformation on whether or not I had preeclampsia or if I didn't. There
Okay.
was never a certain, a concrete
Diagnosis.
diagnosis. And they just say sometimes you're borderline or sometimes this, and I'm just like, okay, which started to scare me. Which started to scare me because if you know about, preeclampsia, and I was already fearful of what I was reading about the hospital that I was to give birth in.
Mm.
This is not home. This is not where I gave birth. And my doctors, I would always see somebody different.
Hmm.
And that's not a thing that I'm used to because you see the same person. So I feared that they weren't worried about the same concerns that I had. I feared that I wasn't listened to, and I was terrified that I was going to die
Hmm.
during childbirth. I was terrified for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And how do I share this with the intended mom or the lawyer for them to care?
You want someone to care about you.
Yeah,
Care about me. I'm doing this for you. I'm human. I have 2 children of my own. I have a family of my own. I have a life of my own. Like, care about me as well. And I think you bring up a really excellent point that it is becoming a new model that you see maybe a different provider depending on the type of care you have. Um, but if it's not what you're used to, and you were already, when you got before you got the diagnosis of having elevated carbon monoxide and the mold, they were already telling you a little bit like you're crazy and or like you're sick or it's your job or like gaslighting you. And so you have these same providers who are doing that, who are now teeter-tottering with a preeclamptic diagnosis, and then you're afraid that they're going to miss something because there's the continuity of care isn't there. And I think you have a right to be concerned about that, especially as a Black woman who is, absolutely have a right to be concerned. And so I think you just bring up a highlight, just another issue here, surrogacy or not, about medicine and about care. But so I did have one question actually, and maybe it's hard to answer, but it seems like you went to these high risk physicians in the state where your family is and where you were living. How did you report that information back? Did mom just not ask for like the actual legal documents of those visits or the actual paper trail and you just kind of updated her? Did she know you? Or because I feel like if you were to send her those medical records, it would say kind of your location and that would kind of raise eyebrows.
yeah. So what I did was on the documents that I could, I just eliminated the top portion that says
Gotcha.
where I got care from. But also, they would have to send the documents to the state where I was to give birth,
Okay.
and I just go on my chart and just screenshot it from there.
Gotcha. Okay. 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 That
Yeah,
makes sense. That makes
and
sense.
I won't. And the crazy thing that hurt me the most is that I really wanted to be as ethical and as honest as I can because I have integrity and I don't suck at lying. But again, I had to do what I had to do for myself
Right.
in my life. And I was like, I have my children. My children didn't get the best of me during this pregnancy because I was sick. And the craziest thing, after I had given birth, I was going through all of my documents. One of the doctors had put in that she thought that I was intentionally dehydrating myself. I don't want someone to care for me that thinks that. So,
That's wild.
That's wild. That was one of the other reasons. Like I was just terrified to give birth there, and I just couldn't share all this stuff with her because she wouldn't care anyway. I have to do what the contract says, so I made it work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so pushing towards third trimester. Third trimester, I finally started gaining weight, and we finally get the news at 35 or 36 weeks that she's no longer growth restricted.
Oh, okay.
I am elated. I am elated. And I send it over to intended mom and lawyer and everybody in the email. It's like, baby's doing great. Baby's doing great. She's no longer growth restricted. She's in the 22nd percentile. And I'm like, okay, this will, ease her worry, all those things. I didn't know that there was an appointment. You didn't tell me. I got the date wrong. I'm in my third trimester, my pregnancy brain. I got the date wrong. But as soon as I left the appointment, I sent the update.
Mm.
Never mind that the baby is doing great. She's out of growth restriction. We don't have to have an induction or anything. We're good. She skipped all of that and gave me hell about giving her the wrong date. It was not intentional, I promise. So then I get an email from the agency. They're saying you're not complying with this. You're not giving her accurate information. She wants to talk to the doctors, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you would think that the thing you care about the most and you're worried about is the child. It was just a control thing. And I started to feel like at this point, I'm just a slave. Somebody needs to have control over me in my life, at every aspect of my life. And I don't like it. And so I was like, listen, I'm really, really tired. I have done everything and then more than I could do to ensure that I'm following the contract, that you have yourself a healthy baby. And all I'm getting is crap. And I'm like, my kids hadn't gotten the best of me. I'm failing classes for the first time in my life, never in my life. So that's the biggest hurt for me. Um, it was just a lot going on. And I had a sister who was in hospital for like 2 weeks. And I'm just like, it's just so much going on, but I can't share with you because number one, you don't care. Number two, I'm in breach of the contract. Number three, you don't have control.
Yeah.
And so that was the hardest piece. But it's almost over. It's almost over. And that's what I kept thinking. I kept thinking, it's almost over. This is the good cause. Fine. 36 and on. I'm having to send in my numbers for gestational diabetes, and it's a diet control, so I don't have to take any medicine
Okay.
or anything. So everybody's like, "How are you gonna do this? How are you gonna do this?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll just drive. I'll just drive up a couple weeks prior to due date and just stay there until I give birth."
Okay.
So that was my plan, and I was gonna do that. I packed all my things and I brought my kids with me because this was going to be an experience for them. This is going to be a learning, thing for them as well. They wanted to see. I went up there. I had an appointment. I had an appointment prior to going back. Everything was fine. We had decided that we probably induce at 39. And I did not want an induction. I did not want a C-section. I did not want anything. I had a whole birth plan written out and I sent it to the doctor. And everything that I did not want almost happened.
Mm.
So I get up there and I'm just not feeling well. Not feeling well. So I'm sitting in the parking lot of the hospital. And then I started having contractions at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I had contractions for 5 hours. I was timing them. And then I was like, okay, so I know that if my water hadn't broken, they're going to send me back home. So I just didn't go. I was sitting outside in the parking lot. And then all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. Couldn't breathe. And I had such a massive headache. It was like, let me just go in and let them know what's going on.
Mm.
I tell them what's going on and they immediately take me back. They do blood work. And that's when I hear potential preeclampsia. Oh, there's something wrong. We can go ahead and give birth. And I'm like, wait, what? So, we're in labor. Are we ready to talk about labor now?
Let's do it. Yeah,
Okay.
we're ready.
I chose one of the ladies that I used to work with, who I know will advocate for me in the event that I cannot. I chose her to come and be my support person along with my children.
And
And
then you obviously let the agency know, hey, I'm at the hospital. They're talking preeclampsia. Let the birth mo or let the intended mother know, or have you?
no,
No, not yet. Okay.
no, because I didn't know what was going on, what was going to happen,
Okay.
and I couldn't take the stress.
Sure.
Couldn't take the stress of her being there, and they're probably going to sue me. They're probably upset. At this point, I don't care. um, so I'm in the hospital, and they start the induction, and I said, okay, I'll give them to. I'll call and let them know once we start progressing, um, so that they can come and make it in time.
Hmm.
So it was probably about, I want to say 2 o'clock in the morning that we were able to give mom a call and let her know that, I'm in labor. And she's asking, did she get induced? Like all those things. And I needed to make it to 37 weeks. I needed to make it to 37 weeks to get my final payment to have a term baby.
Hmm.
Not full term, but term.
So there's
Um,
an extra incentive financially to deliver a baby after 37 weeks.
After 37, because I had previously had a preemie.
Hmm.
She was delivered at 35. So yes, there was an extra incentive. But not only that, I was broke. I had to run out of money. So
Right. You're
I had,
traveling back and forth. You're paying out of pocket for high risk medical
I,
care.
I'm also not working. So all
Right.
the funds that I'm getting is to live.
Right.
And, so I was in a deficit. So I'm laboring, and it's a hard labor. Ended up 37 hours.
Whew.
37 hours, and she was stuck at 4 centimeters for 20 hours.
Wow. I'm surprised
So
they didn't want to intervene.
yeah, so I asked, I was like, can you guys not just like get her out, do something? They were like, well, since you're not a first time mom, they allow you to go 14 hours of a baby not progressing. If you have more than one kid, you're going 24 hours with
Hmm.
baby, no,
Okay.
not progressing, which was worrisome to me. Um, Ended up after 20 something hours finally getting an epidural, and we had told her, she said that she was X amount of hours away, that they were going to be here. And I had texted the agency to ask if mom had made it. I didn't get a response initially, or very quickly. Plus, I was in labor. um, I actually had changed my mind about letting her come into the room. I was going to let her come in, even though she had treated me so badly. Um, I wanted her to experience that, but I didn't get a response. Finally, it was time to push. Before we get to pushing, let's go back to the day prior.
Okay.
I'm at the hospital and I'm talking to the doctors, and I'm like, I give them the contract, I give them the birth rights, or for the birth certificate and all those things, how it's going to happen.
Hmm.
And I was like, how does this work? Do I get time? And they were like, if you want time, like, we might be able to give you a couple minutes, with our, I understood going in, this is not my child. I
Hmm.
am a host. I am a body. But I did at least want to see the child that I had been carrying for 9 months, and at least get, just to hold it for 2 minutes to say, hi, I met you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, this is like, I don't know why, but I like just your words are really emotional, like just to consider yourself as a host, as a body, it's like, I think
that's how,
it completely, I don't know. I don't want to say severs, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it completely goes against all, like, so much more than that, right?
yeah,
Like, our,
it, the,
the
it
connection we
completely,
have with the child that we carry is so, it's unlike any connection you have with any other human. And so, yeah, anyway, that was just really,
it completely dehumanized me. The entire experience dehumanized me. And it was hurtful. And I was like, I can't even enjoy I couldn't enjoy the kicks because number one, the kicks physically made me sick. So I had gotten hell from the time it said pregnant to the time I gave birth and then after. Um,
So anyway, yeah, sorry. Day prior, you had asked
yeah,
how, will I get a few minutes? What's the
yeah. And
protocol here? Yeah.
they were okay with it. They were like, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's nothing in the contract that says you can't, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So apparently mom made it and whoever else was with her, it was
What
time to
about
push.
the intended father? Because like we've not talked about him at all. Did he show up? Was he just
Because
like
there
you
was
have no
no
clue?
need. So I saw him once in the
Okay.
very first interview when we were on Zoom, and he seemed like an okay guy. I asked questions throughout, when we were first getting to know each other. How does he feel about it? Oh, he doesn't really care. You know, I mean, not that he didn't care, but this was her thing.
Okay. So he just
So
kind of was in the
yeah,
picture the whole time.
yeah, and I
Okay.
communicated with her.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know who came up to the hospital or anything, but I did tell the nurse and everybody on staff, only information you can share is how far I've dilated and if the baby is okay. She does not need to know which room I'm in, anything. They assured me
Okay.
that she was going to be in the recovery unit. They were having her a room, that she's going to have her own room for when baby's born. Just take her. Um, well, when it was time for me to push, I tell the doctor, I was like, okay, I'm ready to push. And he was like, no, she hasn't progressed in a while. I don't think so. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty ready to push. And he was like, okay, yeah. So all of these nurses come flood. I know how it works, but the way that they flooded in, I was like, something's amiss.
Mm.
And so I see like four nurses that I hadn't seen this entire time. They're in the corner whispering. And I'm like, what are you guys whispering about? And she was like, oh no, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And I'm like, you're a labor and delivery nurse, correct? And she was like, yeah. So you know what you're supposed to be doing. But I knew what they were whispering about. Mom had made it. And I don't know what story she said. I don't know what she told. But
Mm.
I had told my support person, I was like, they're not going to let me. They're not going to let me hold the baby. They're not going to let me see the baby. And I had told her that. So I'm pushing. And then as soon as the baby plops out, they're like, no contact, no contact. She can't touch her. She can't see her. She can't take any pictures or anything. No skin to skin. And I'm just like, this is a very human experience. They're yelling out of nowhere. And then the the nurse who took the baby, she wrapped the baby and she ran out of the room so fast. And I guess she thought that I was gonna get up and run after her to, I don't know what was said, but I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 100% sure that mom was outside the room while I was pushing because the nurses was looking back and they were talking to someone. And that's when they were like, no, no contact, none of that. Not only did they ruin that experience for me, they ruined the experience for my children. I don't know if the baby will have any memory of just being snatched away like that from the only voice, the only body that she had known this entire time. And it's just the way that it was done, it hurt. Because, like, literally, I just saw that she was small. That's it. I can't give you any more details other than that. And the absolute worst part of it is I didn't even get a thank you. I didn't get a thank you. I didn't get a screw you. I didn't get anything from the family. So after I had given birth, I had an epidural. I had pretty good control of my legs. And so I asked them, I told my support person, I said, anybody who just had something to do with that, get them out of here now. So she told them to leave. They left. I asked the hospital, I said, how long do I have to stay here? They said a minimum of 2 hours. Okay, go get my discharge papers ready.
Mm.
I could not be there the way that that had just happened. I couldn't be there. So 2 hours, I was clear. I was cleared to go home. I left. I went to the hotel. I stayed overnight. The next day, I drove 6 hours home. And I got home, and no, I was fine until I wasn't.
Hmm. What happened?
I had came home, I took a shower, elevated my feet because they were super swollen, which I had just driven 6 hours and just given birth, so I expected it to be a little swollen. I elevated my feet and I took my dog out. I ended up getting a puppy a couple weeks before giving birth so that it didn't affect me too badly emotionally. Um, I took the dog out, and as soon as I came back in, almost immediately, I could not breathe. I couldn't breathe, and I had a sudden cough that came with worse than wheezing. I couldn't
Hmm.
even explain what it was. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep. And I went to sleep, but it woke me up. And I ended up going to the emergency room, and I went to the emergency room, and they did blood work or whatever. And I was like, look at my feet. Like I have relatively skinny feet and ankles. And the nurse, she was like, oh, I'm not worried about it or anything. Oh, they did a chest X-ray. Everything looks fine. All your blood work looks fine. I'm like, you're kidding, right? They're like, you have asthma, right? I'm like, I do, but this is not what this is.
Hmm.
And so she was like, okay, I got one more lab that's going to come back. She was like, but I'm not worried about preeclampsia or anything. That came back negative. So she sent me home with a diagnosis of asthma exacerbation or something
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
And I went home. I went home and I went back to sleep. I got up probably like 4 hours later, and something in my heart just wasn't settled. And I was able to see my lab results. So I have a friend, and I sent them to her, and I was like, can you please look at these results? Not to mention, my face was so fat, fatter than it was throughout the entire pregnancy. And I'm just like,
Like really puffy, yeah.
yes. And I'm just like, what's happening? She looks at the results and she was like, I think you need to go to a different hospital.
Hmm.
I went to a different hospital. I didn't even get to finish telling my story. And they rushed me to the back. They put me in a cold room. They gave me, they did x-rays, ultrasounds, everything. I had postpartum preeclampsia.
Hmm.
Had postpartum preeclampsia. I also had pulmonary edema. So
Probably
there
causing
was,
preeclampsia.
yeah. So there was just fluid crushing my heart and my lungs. And like they said, if you hadn't come in, you were going to either have a stroke or you were going to be dead.
Hmm.
And so I spent a few days in the hospital, and they getting all the fluids off me and everything. And so I ended up reaching out to the agency, just letting her know what's happening, because she was really sweet. She was really sweet. And I was so scared. But that was one of the reasons I needed to get home as well, because if I must die, I want to die in the hands of somebody that I trust. My OB that has cared, that delivered my entire family's kids. My kids will be at home if I die. And everything that I feared it was coming true. Like, am I going to lose my life?
Hmm.
Was it worth me bringing this life into a world? Was it worth me being treated like that and my kids not getting the best of me throughout this journey, only for me to kick the bucket and not be here with them?
Hmm.
For someone who didn't care about my health, my children's health, or anything. Um, so the doctor finally came a few days later and was going to release me. He was going to release me. And we were talking. And as soon as he left, I sat up in the bed. And immediately, one side of my face started to droop. So I ended up having a case of Bell palsy. So I couldn't go home. And I'm just crying because my kids are at home. My daughter's calling me while I'm in the hospital and it's like, Mommy, are you okay? I'm scared you're going to die. I'm scared you're going to die for doing this for somebody. And yeah, I am officially 1 week postpartum today, but I'm alive. I'm alive and I did the deed, and the baby was born, and I just hope and pray that she's well and that they're well. But this is something I will never ever do again.
Yeah. And I'm assuming no contact since.
No contact.
Now, I mean, this is an afterthought because, you're concern is your own life and your family. But typically, postpartum includes 6 weeks, and I would think that a contract would include that they would care for you during your postpartum period. But I'm assuming that that care in the hospital back home or back where your family is would be on your own dime as well and not part of the contract.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've talked to surrogate mothers who have severe PTSD or other um, mental health, depression, those types of things, mental health issues after delivering their surrogate child. And it goes even beyond that 6 weeks period, obviously. And then it's, they're ended up having to provide their own medical care, foot the bill for long-term complications. Um, and so, we know that women who are surrogate mothers are more likely to have high risk pregnancies like yourself. You're more likely to have gestational diabetes. You're more likely to have preeclampsia. And those diagnoses during your pregnancy do have long term implications for the rest of your life. You will have to watch your blood pressure now, as it can be an indication for high blood pressure later in life. And so, I want to know you're only 1 week out and you had 6 hours in a car. You probably had your kiddos with you, but 6 hours is a long time to be thinking about everything that happened and then the time in the hospital thinking. And then now, what is like, you had such a difficult and unjust experience. And it obviously has impacted your physical, mental, financial situation. Um, so, what would you tell? Because I think you're pretty clear that you would tell someone who is considering to be a surrogate, like, run far away. This is not what you want to do. But what would you say to a couple or even a single person who is considering hiring a surrogate mother?
Ooh, I wish someone had asked that. Well, first and foremost, before I even answer that, for us, for the surrogates, there is such extensive background checking and drug testing and psychological evaluations and all those things that we have to go through that the intended parents don't have to go through. So first and foremost, I think that should be included, incorporated into the decision making process, because just because someone has the funds doesn't mean that they're the right person for it. Because honestly, towards the end, I started to feel unsafe and I started to worry about the child and what kind of home she would be raised in. Um, for someone who's considering it, they really need to self evaluate your motives, who you are, what you bring to the table, how you care for people who are not your family, how you care for people, period, plays a big part of the decision making process. I also think they need to spend time. They need to spend time with the surrogate. They need to spend time with one another to just build a rapport to see if it's truly going to work. They need to talk about potential unforeseen circumstances and how they would handle that. And if you're just rigid and if it's just transactional, then maybe this is not the route for you. Or maybe you need to find a surrogate that is that way as well.
Hmm.
Um, I think surrogacy has the potential to be such a beautiful journey, a beautiful process. But there was so much that I thought about throughout this process, not just how I would feel, but in this certain case, I feel bad for the baby because not only and so I found you. I was started to look at some of the people's videos, and I also Googled individuals who were born via surrogacy. They said they have a missing space. They have no connection to their background. How do I tell this child, if I intend on telling this child, I'm your mom and your aunt, that your father was deceased prior to your conception? Like, how does that impact her life?
Mhm.
How does that fill a void? And I feel like I thought that I was doing a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
And on some level, it was a very beautiful thing. But now I also have to deal with the fact that I'm potentially damaging this child by playing the part that I played in it. So, no, I don't think until you have considered everything, until you have done thorough investigation and research and understand, because you're not going to understand going in. You're just happy to help someone. And even if you're reading the contract and reading the contract, like I said, unforeseen circumstances and just the way that things happen, you don't truly know what you're getting into. And if you're a person like me, you care about people and you care about the child and you care about the upbringing and you care about how that's going to affect her future. Like, that's a lot to deal with. That's a lot to take in. So,
And
yeah,
then to just not have any resolve, right? So like you care about this being, you obviously you raised her for 9 months or whatever, and you are curious to know how she's doing, but you will never likely know what you will not likely never have resolve and to know
correct.
because you won't show up on a birth certificate, you won't show up in a DNA test. Um, all of that is going to be a complete mystery, and whether or not she ever even knows that, um, which I think is just absolutely horrific. Do you feel then that your experience, so someone might say, okay, well, your experience is a one-off. Do you think that, or do you think that this is a part of a larger pattern of how surrogate mothers are treated in the United States or beyond?
I do not think at all that this is a one-off. I think it was pretty difficult. However, people are afraid. They're afraid to share their story because, number one, people have way too many opinions. You knew what you were getting into. That's your fault. Blah blah blah. You have to know what comes along with it. But get yourself in a real situation that you didn't foresee all those things happening.
Yeah.
Um, I think on a larger scale, more people than not have gone through similar situations, such as myself, if not worse.
Mm.
Like, this should not be transactional. No one should have control over another human. This should be a working process together. It should be a beautiful journey. I don't belong to you. I'm a human, especially some because we have to have our own children. We have children. Please understand, we have lives. We are real people doing a big service for you. And it becomes one of those things where I think that they thought, oh, I'm paying you. You have to do exactly what I say. But on a larger scale, do you not understand how big of a thing I'm doing for you, something you can't produce on your own? But not just that. Not just that. This is a huge thing that someone's doing for you. You cannot control them. They are a human. But there was something else I was going to say and I just lost it. It was good. You have to understand that people are human first. You are a human that got into this to
Mhm.
create a human, to love that human. But you ask someone else for help. And just because you're throwing a couple dollars my way does not mean that this is transactional, because it's not. This is a human experience. And I kid you not, while the ladies were screaming, no contact, and I was like, are you serious? This is a human experience. And I can't imagine what they were thinking or how they were feeling, because they didn't show that they cared before, during, or after. Um, but while you get to go home with this beautiful baby that I don't know how much she weighs, if she's healthy or anything, while you get to go home with this beautiful baby, I get to suffer long-term effects. I get to go home with a busted up vagina. I get to go home with potential mental health issues, physical health issues that I almost died, not to mention the lasting effects, because this instance, this whole journey will change the trajectory of the rest of my life. How I see people, if I even see people as good anymore, do I trust myself to want to be a good Samaritan to help another person again? But the worst part of it is, you're asking seemingly healthy individuals to make themselves unhealthy to create a life to bring in the world for you.
Mhm.
Because I didn't understand and I did not know. I had no idea of how much more of a percentage the risk goes up doing IVF and doing this versus having your own child.
Mhm. Yeah. I think a lot of people are misled as far as the risks for surrogate mothers to the children born through these technologies such as IVF, genetic testing. All of this has risks, some known, large, some mostly largely unknown. Um, yeah. Do you feel, some have stated that they feel that surrogacy is a modern form of slavery, and that's quite a steep accusation. But I did hear you mention that a little bit in your story. Do you feel that that would be an accurate description of surrogacy?
I do, but even though it's something, this is not The Handmaid's Tale, but I do watch The Handmaid's Tale. Um, this is something that I chose in my heart. But
Sure.
once you're in it, that's exactly, at least for me, that's exactly what it felt like.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that sometimes can be the argument, right? For it. People say, well, it's her body, it's her choice. She's signing a contract. She knows what she's signing. But I think, we hit on this at the beginning that one, it's impossible to give truly informed consent, even if you sat down with someone and they talked you through literally every detail. It's impossible because we don't have every detail. It's not something that occurs in a laboratory in this space without external complications in life. But it's not truly possible to give informed consent. And a contract cannot protect all the parties, especially the unborn. And so I think that's where that argument really breaks down. You mentioned that you had to undergo like medical testing and labs, and you have to be a proven breeder, is what I say. It's like cattle. You have to have had children of your own and healthy pregnancies. But you mentioned the psychological evaluation. What does that look like? Because I want people to understand, is that just like a one interview with a counselor? Like, what is this psychological evaluation? Because a lot of moms end up, at least in our study that we found, end up with postpartum depression or at least some variant of that. So, what you would think that this like evaluation might help guard against that, but it certainly doesn't because these women are going home with empty arms, full breasts, raging hormones. But can you speak briefly to what that looks like
Yeah,
before pregnancy?
absolutely. So with me, I first you had to answer a questionnaire asking how you would deal with certain situations, ask who your support people are, but then you also have an interview with psychologists. And they're asking you questions. Who are your support people? How do you intend on handling certain situations? How do you handle stress? Um, do you understand that you're not going to go home with this baby?
Hmm.
So it's just, I think it's an hour long,
Okay.
30 minutes to an hour of just questions. But if I'm being honest, somebody can like you can answer those questions
Right.
and
And they
still
sound a lot hypothetical.
yes,
And if you've never done it before, you have no idea what it's like to give up a
yeah,
child that you just gave birth to. Right?
absolutely,
You have absolutely no idea the emotional toll that that will play on your body and your mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just thankful. Like I said, like we said, I'm just 1 week out.
Yeah.
But I know you have to go in understanding this is not my child. I'm not bringing this child home with me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Um, I don't want any more kids right now. But my psychological and emotional impact comes from the way that she was just ripped away.
Yeah.
That alone. Not even the fact that I'm not gonna see her or anything. I'm okay with that. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your insight. Um, and I guess I'm going to open it one more time. Is there anything else that you would like to say? And if not, that's totally cool. But I want to just give you one last opportunity to say anything that might be on your mind. But otherwise, I will thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing such a raw and personal story with us and telling me it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, sure. I can say a few more things.
Sure.
First and foremost, I'm thankful to have been able to do something that I've always wanted to do. I am thankful that I had the ability to help someone create something that they've always wanted. Um, I am grateful that I am alive and I still am able to care for my children. I am very disappointed in the system. I'm disappointed in myself for not knowing, even though I don't think that I really truly could have known. I'm disappointed in surrogacy as a whole. Like I said, I was very, very pro initially, and now I'm completely against it, and I will advocate against it. I'm so glad and thankful that I found you. And I was able to get on here and share my story. And if it can just help one person, either decide whether they want to go forward or go against it, or even if it helps someone to no longer be afraid to share their story, then I'm
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. And you bring up an important point. If you were a surrogate mother or involved in some sort of process and you want to share your story, you can always reach out to us. And my email is callie.fell@cbc-network.org. I do have many women who reach out and want to share their stories. And unfortunately, the agencies aren't a place where you can. I've had surrogate mothers contact me who were kicked out of support groups that their agency hosted because they were having negative experiences. And so, yeah, if you want to share your story, you can get in touch with us like Erika has. And again, Erika, I just want to thank you so much and we'll stay in touch. And I just want to share, and if you're listening, and just share her story with others. And thank you all to the people who are listening and who are tuning in to these stories and who are listening to voices like Erika. So thank you, Erika, and thank you to our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.